Hi, and welcome back to the show. I'm super excited to be here, even though I procrastinated a lot before I hit record. And the reason I procrastinate a lot before I hit record is because my old feelings of not being enough and not being good enough always bubble up. And anytime I'm doing something a little bit front facing, like this podcast or my Instagram page, don't forget to follow me, go over to @JessicaCooke, or anything publicly, I start to think, all these feelings of I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And I take ages to hit record. So a short podcast episode could take me a couple of hours because I'll spend the first hour just messing. So you're really welcome. What I want to chat to you about in this episode is about how getting to know yourself will actually save you years of frustration and heartache trying to get healthy. And I want to share with you how I held myself back for years and years by not getting to know myself. And then when I finally did go on a journey of self-discovery and just simply getting to know myself, how I ended up becoming fit and healthy. And you know, if you listen to this podcast, that it enabled me to quit alcohol. And I quit alcohol. I stopped comfort eating. I dropped about 3 stone, although weight is not important. I got fit, I got healthy, and now I'm living a life that is much more in alignment with who I am and what I want out of life. And I feel really amazing about that, because before I did this work on myself and before I got fit and healthy, this sounds really weird, I can't believe I'm sharing it with you, but I always got really scared that I was going to die without having corrected or fixed the things in my life that I really wanted fixing. And especially around the time that I was only beginning to fix them, I got a real sense of urgency and stress inside me that I needed to quickly do these things, because I just felt worried that I was going to leave this world with a legacy just in my family, in my inner circle, that I wasn't happy with. So it was a big driving force for me to change that and to really focus on becoming the person that I wanted to become. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you practical tips that I followed that really helped me get to know myself better. And I want to kick this off with a little story, because I think it's going to really help show you exactly the difference. So I want you to think of 2 women, Joan and Lisa. And Joan and Lisa both have the same goals. They want to get fit. They want to break free from their unhealthy habits. Now, they both start off and they start to diet and find out ways to work out. And they both end up really inconsistent, and they really struggle to implement healthy habits, and they really struggle to break free from the unhealthy habits that are holding them back. And they both feel really annoyed in themselves. They feel bad, they feel stressed out, they feel anxious. And what Joan does is she keeps restarting, trying another diet, trying a different workout, and figuring out how to get fit and break free from unhealthy habits. But she's really inconsistent. So Joan goes around and around in circles. And each time she tries again, she feels even more worse about herself. She feels like a failure. She's got that horrible feeling in the pit of her stomach where she just thinks she's never going to be fit and healthy, and her clothes are always going to be tight, and she's always going to end up just really not liking how she feels about herself. And her solution is to keep just trying. Now, Lisa initially tried to diet and tried to find the exercise to do, and she also found herself really inconsistent. And rather than continuing to try new things and always end up back at square one, she decided to get to know herself a little bit. And she decided to ask herself why she was struggling to be so inconsistent, to be so consistent, why she was struggling with consistency, and why she was struggling to break free from unhealthy habits, and why she found implementing healthy habits so easy. And she went on a lovely journey of self-discovery, and she healed her relationship with food. She discovered her relationship with herself. She got to know herself and her triggers and where she's stressed out and why she's stressed out and why she uses external substances to make herself feel better. And she worked on herself and got to know herself. And because of that, getting fit and healthy became really easy to her. Now, Both those women had the same goal, but Joan just kept taking action, trying different things, but continuing just to take action, trying to do a different thing and try to get a different outcome. Whereas Lisa stopped and paused and got to know herself and asked questions about why she was so inconsistent and why she really struggled. And she saved herself absolutely years of heartache. She got to the root cause of the problem. She fixed the root cause of the problem so that breaking free from unhealthy habits that were holding her back and implementing healthy habits became easy to her. Now, I have always been Joan all my life. I have taken so much action all my life. That's been my solution to everything. Back when I was unfit and unhealthy, up to a few years ago. Now, I know I've been a fitness coach for years, but I haven't truly become fit and healthy and freed myself of so many shackles of my unhealthy habits up until recent years. My answer to everything was always to do more. And I meant that in a really authentic way. My intentions were always in the right place. I always ran away from myself and I never questioned any of my actions. So for example, with my food, I have had huge issues with food, massive disordered eating, restriction, binging, dieting, comfort eating, like eating as much as I can and then eating very little. And because of that, my weight always fluctuated. I was always losing weight and I was always gaining weight. But I never ever once in like 15 years asked myself why I really struggled to maintain a healthy weight and why I really struggled with food. I never stopped and asked myself those questions. I just kept going, very much like Joan. I just kept trying a new thing. Like I went from cutting carbs to intermittent fasting to restricting, to calorie counting, to using MyFitnessPal, to doing Slimming World, to doing Weight Watchers. And I just went from one thing to the next with nothing ever really working. And it was the same with my workouts. And like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but when I was unfit and unhealthy and I was working out, okay, I wasn't unfit, I was unhealthy. And when I was working out 5 days a week, I used to work out in COVID for 5 workouts, 5 days a week. They were 30 minutes long. And because my clothes were still very tight throughout that period of time, I decided one day that I was going to add on some jogging and I was going to jog like a few times a week on top of the 5 workouts per week. And I genuinely thought that was a solution because it never once crossed my mind to sit back and to assess and to ask myself, why was it that I was so unhealthy? Why were my clothes tight? Why did I feel unhealthy? If I was working out 5 days a week, why was I not feeling better in myself? And another solution back then when I was unhealthy and I was in my more phase, again, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I added a weighted vest onto myself for my workouts. So I was working out 5 days a week. I stopped the jogging because I was just absolutely wrecked. I could hardly speak at night time, like the 5 workouts plus the 3 jogs. And I said, well, I know, I'll just add a weighted vest. So I had like 10 kg on a weighted vest on my chest. Now, I know that there's so many things wrong with that. Where is the self-love? Where's the kindness? Like all I needed back then, my own fault, was for somebody just to pull me aside and go, it's clearly obvious you don't love yourself. What is going on? And I look back at such empathy to that person that had the weighted vest on, doing extra workouts with 10 kg on their vests. And I have so much empathy for people now who I can see are very like that as well. But that was my solution back then. I never sat back and asked myself, well, with the things I am doing, how can I get better results from the things that I'm doing and what am I not doing? And in other ways, it manifested itself is in the sense that I used to always say to people, oh, I just love to be kept busy. I can't sit still. Do you ever find yourself saying that too? Like, oh, I can't sit still. And you say it like fact. And you say it like you've accepted it. That's the way I used to always be. Like, I find it difficult to sit still. And I just accept that as fact. And another big thing was like, I like to be kept busy. never questioning it, just like a stamp. I like to be kept busy. And the ways I kept busy was by doing too much. If I ever found a spare moment in my day, I would be cleaning something. Cleaning the whole time. I think I used cleaning to fill up any space left over in my day to day. And other ways that I didn't know myself or even ask myself about myself was people pleasing. I was just such a huge people pleaser. And my intentions were good, and it wasn't that I was trying to be inauthentic to anybody that I was with, but it was just, I'd gotten to this place in my life where I just felt like I was trying to make anybody that I was with have a better time or enjoy themselves in my company. And I had lost so much what it meant to have a good, healthy connections in my life. And I remember chatting to somebody about this, highly qualified, really excellent person, very dear in my life. And I had said to her that I was going to start a hobby. And I was like, I'm really nervous. I'm about to start a hobby. But like, I don't know if I have the patience for it. I would really love some more connections in my life, but I just don't know if I can bear that really polite conversation that you have to be so super polite to, that for years and years, and then eventually you might get to know the person. I said, I'm too tired for doing that. I remember so well, I was saying to her, I remember so well what it was like to have that banter and the crack and the messing with the friendship groups that I lost touch with from school, and just the crack we would have and how intimately we knew each other and how easy it was. And I just spent a lot of my time laughing. It's one of my favorite things to do. And she turned around to me and she said, "Oh God, Jessica, well, that sounds like absolute hell." And if that was me, and I was thinking of all these years ahead of me of trying to be polite to somebody, to eventually getting to know each other, to eventually be friends, I'd prefer to just spend time in my own company. And, I just burst out laughing because it just sounded so crazy. And she burst out laughing too. And it was one of those moments that I really learned a lesson from. I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that sounds really cracked, because I had forgotten what it meant to have true friendship and to have fun in that friendship. And it was great for her to notice that and almost like jokingly laugh about how horrific that would be. And I was like, oh my God, yes, so that is the wrong way, right? So I went on and I started that hobby, and just almost knowing like that the best thing was just to be myself and try and have a bit of fun really helped. And the reason I'm sharing that story with you is because I spent so many years not knowing myself. And the result of that was anytime a problem arose in my life, I would solve it without asking myself what I needed, because I didn't know myself and I wasn't in tune with myself and I wasn't connected with myself. My answer to my problems was just to try harder and to do more, and that manifested itself in workouts and food. And around people, I was so out of touch with myself. I was just in this dynamic of people pleasing no matter who I was with. And the last thing I want to share with you was how it manifested in work as well, and how it came through in work. Through COVID, when my business first went online, I used to email my clients 5 days a week. And again, I look back so kindly on that person whose intentions were good, but the driving force behind those emails was a fear of not being good enough and a lack of valuing what I contribute. And I know that now, but it's only because I went on this journey of discovery with myself. And one more thing that I want to share with you, when I was in COVID and I first set up my online business, I was doing 5 live workouts a week, and I was chatting to Joe one night and I was like, oh, good, you know what? It was the summertime and people were away, but I was going, oh my God, people are showing up a little bit less over the past couple of weeks. What can I do to get them to show up a little bit more? Now, my answer to that, genuinely, this is hilarious now, was to Joe was, I'm going to add on extra sessions in the evening time. And Joe was like, are you having me on? I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So people have a choice. They can show up in the morning time or they can show up in the evening time. And he was like, so you're going to think about doing 10 workouts a week? I was like, yeah, but one of them I can just like demonstrate a little bit, and on the other one I can go a little bit less. And, you know, I won't go as hard in both sessions. And obviously I didn't go ahead with it. Joe, thankfully, was my voice of reason. But there are so many things wrong with that. However, if you're listening to this, you can see the error of my ways. Aside from almost killing myself with the idea of doing 2 workouts a day, I was thinking about what I could do for other people and not even taking into consideration what I might need, and not even knowing that I was doing that, not even knowing that I wasn't putting myself into consideration. And if you're listening to this now, you might be in that bracket. You might be listening and going, well, that's not me. I would never do that. But there may be areas in your life that you genuinely just don't think about what you think and how you feel and how it might impact you. You go straight to, how is it going to impact the other person and what I can do for them? And that's a really big warning sign that you are out of touch with yourself. And you can see it the whole time in the ways you operate with your kids, with your husband, with your friends, with your work. If people come to you with things, do you instantly think about, well, what will work for them? And do you come into the equation at all? Or does your stuff get dropped? Are you in tune with yourself? Do you even know what likes and dislikes you have? Like, do you know what you hate? Do you know what you love? Like, do you know that you're a really impatient person? Do you know that you hate traffic? Do you know that you are a total control freak? Do you know that you have a lack of self-worth? That you feel like you're not good enough? Do you know this stuff? Or is this stuff operating you and making you make all these decisions without you even knowing? And wouldn't that be horrible? And this is what I went through, that I was making decisions and taking action based off a foundation of not loving myself, feeling like I wasn't enough, not valuing what I did, not valuing the things I did enough. So my answer was adding more and more and more. And this would even come back to the workouts that I would be doing on myself, like not valuing them enough, thinking I had to do more, and never getting to the root cause of the problem, never actually stepping back and asking myself, what do I need here? How do I feel about this? Why am I struggling so much? What's going on? And it was only one day when I discovered that there are 2 things you need to do to get fit and break free from the unhealthy habits that are holding you back. And that is one of them is it's not only about implementing healthy habits, which most of us jump to. We're straight into I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And not enough of us are asking ourselves, well, how do we first break free from the things that are holding us back? And we don't spend enough time there. We don't spend enough time analyzing our behavior, witnessing our behavior, observing our behavior, and asking questions like, why would I do that? Or, okay, I'm going to implement this, but why? Why am I struggling to be consistent? Why am I overweight? Why do I find turning up to my workouts so difficult? Why do I feel so demotivated? Why am I constantly overeating? We don't spend enough time there. And turning inward helps you create healthy, solid foundations on which you can build your healthy habits. And if you don't have those solid foundations, the healthy habits are always going to be really, really difficult. And that's why you're always going to feel like you're on a loop of weight gain, weight loss, fit, unfit, unhealthy, healthy, start again Monday. And you're always going to be around and around and around. If you're letting stress and anxiety make decisions for you, you're always going to be on that loop. If you're overeating because you're stressed out, if you're turning to food because you're stressed out, you are never going to fix that by focusing on a diet. You have to get to the stress and anxiety. If you feel like you are not good enough and that is driving you towards unhealthy habits, you are never going to fix your feelings of not being good enough by trying to do more and more every week, starting again. You are not getting to the root cause of the problem. And this was me on a loop for many, many years. Now, I've written down how many steps. Well, they're not like they're tips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tips that have helped me go from a place of not knowing myself and going around in circles to knowing myself, stopping and pausing and being able to get to the root cause of the problem of things. Now, in my Thrive coaching program, we do something called Thrive Mind, which is this 10-minute practice that helps us unearth all this stuff. However, with you on the podcast, I want to share with you some tips that are going to get you started in the right direction. So number 1 is these are tips for you if you want to start to uncover what's holding you back and get you started on the journey of breaking free from your unhealthy habits so that implementing healthy habits becomes easy. So step number 1 is to subtract the extras from your life. Now, this is what I had to do first of all in my journey. I was doing so many things, and I was doing these things because I was driven by never feeling good enough, that I never had space or time to sit and think. So it all has to start there. It has to start with you subtracting noise from your life, extras from your life. Ask yourself, what extra stuff are you doing that you don't need to do? Are you firing off extra emails? Do you have extra work meetings? Are you staying later in work? Are you doing extra work? Are you duplicating? I have been an awful duplicator still, so much so that Joe has to sometimes, like when we have work meetings, I have to sit down and like share with him, like, when I'm doing this with this, and sometimes I'm still on a learning curve. I'm not perfect. And he would say, like, oh my God, like, you're doing this and you're also doing it over here. Like, oh my God, I am. And why am I doing that? Because I'm being driven from a feeling of not being enough. So I ask you, what areas in your life are there where you potentially are duplicating what you're doing or doing things that you don't really need to be doing for the wrong reasons? To be kept busy because you can't sit still, because you feel like you're not enough, because you're trying to people please. What are the areas in your life that you're doing things for the wrong reasons? Step number 2 is to question why you do things. And this has been a complete game changer for me. Now I really aim to make a little space between me and a decision that I make. And often I will find that I'm making the decision for the wrong reasons, that I'm making the decision because I'm being driven by a feeling of not being enough. So now when I am doing things, I'm always questioning why I'm doing them. And back when I was healing myself with my food and my health, I was asking myself, well, why am I struggling to be so inconsistent? And ask yourself today, why do you struggle to be so inconsistent? Why are you so stressed out? Why do you feel such anxiety the whole time? And when you ask yourself these questions throughout the day, I mean, you don't even have to stop and dedicate an hour to this. Just being aware throughout the day, questioning why you do things can be really, really huge. Step number 3 is to practice saying no to yourself. And all too many times I see this, and I've seen it with myself for years, that we are all so willing to try new things when it comes to food. Like, you know, I've joked with you before about I used to be obsessed about whether rye bread or spelt bread was best when I was unhealthy and my clothes are really tight. But it's never about the rye bread or spelt bread. You're never gaining weight and unhealthy in your clothes because you haven't picked the right type of bread. There's always more to it than that. Always more to it than that. And one of the things I would like to have started doing earlier that I do now is to say no. Like, if you're sitting on the couch after dinner and you really want some chocolate, say no. And is it fear-led when you refuse to say no to yourself? Are you scared of the feelings that are going to bubble up inside you? And I want you to picture yourself now sitting on a chair in your living room, watching the TV. And you think to yourself, I'd love something sweet, I'd love some chocolate. What would happen if you said no? Why would it be so difficult? It's always more than just having something sweet, just needing something sweet. If you can't say no to yourself, there is something big going on there. And I didn't used to be able to say no. The idea of sitting with my feelings in the nighttime while I was watching TV and not eating really stressed me out. And that's where the whole yogurt and fruit came in. But that's just masking the problem, because you're still eating your emotions. Whether it's fruit or chocolate, it's still the same habit. You're eating for a different reason other than needing food. And boredom, no, I don't buy that. Because boredom, you don't fix boredom by eating, because it's over in 5 minutes and you feel like shit. So there's more to it than that. It doesn't alleviate boredom at all. There's something else going on. And I know I used to think that it was boredom, but when you go deeper, there's always something more there. So the only way to find that out is to practice it. Jeepers, what would happen if you just kept saying no to yourself? Would you start crying and getting really frustrated and getting really anxious and stressed out? I might say to you that might be a good thing. It was definitely a good thing for me. It was really uncomfortable and really horrific the first few times I said no. I felt like I was going to run away. I felt like I was going to jump up and run away from myself. That's how unused to I was of feeling uncomfortable feelings. Step number 4 is to bring awareness to yourself all of the time. Imagine that you have an awareness over on the corner of the room and you're watching yourself. That's huge. That's a game changer. You're watching yourself making all these mini and micro decisions throughout the day. Only when you bring awareness to your actions throughout the day can you really get a good sense of what's driving you. And it gives you start to learn about yourself. When you go through the motions and you don't question it and you're just like, oh, I just hate to sit still. Oh, I find it so difficult to sit still. I like to be kept busy. You're not questioning everything. You're just telling yourself the same thing over and over again, which is what I did. That's what I used to just say on a loop. Oh my God, I like to be kept busy. Oh my God, life is so overwhelming and so busy. And I never stopped to think, stop. I need to learn how to sit still. I need to learn how to not rely on busyness to keep me okay. I need to confront these problems before it's too late. Because of course there is going to come a time when all of us have a lot less to do in our lives and we're going to be confronted with a slowness. Much better to prepare yourself for that now than to have this absolute shit show down the road where you've spent your whole life escaping and being busy, to all of a sudden one day find yourself in a situation where you've nothing to make yourself busy with. And that is terrifying, that idea. The 5th one is to feel the feelings that bubble up inside of you and stop trying to escape them. So for me, the way I escaped my feelings were through drinking and through eating, through scrolling. Yeah, they were the 3 main ones. I'm just trying to think, was there more? I'm sure there are. But feel the feelings. Let the feelings bubble up. Like for me, I feel frustration and stress and anxiety often. The old me didn't used to feel them, but I was driven by them. I was frustrated and anxious and stressed out all of the time, but I wasn't tapping into it. Now I'm like, oh, I feel anxious. And I take steps in the next few moments to allow the anxiety come over me and then to recognize, and there's a practice that we do in our Thrive Minds. However, back then I was just driven by it. Now I feel the feelings of anxiety. I feel the feelings of stress. I feel the feelings of frustration. I feel them. I let them in, I allow them in. And then with a little practice, they pass. And I can get on with my day. Whereas before it was, they're there, I eat, I get fat, I get unhealthy. So I have these feelings that I'm trying to run away from, and I'm also really unhealthy. But we don't need to have the extra unhealthy bit on top of our already existing problem, right? Okay. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful. It's my absolute mission to help you, women over 40, get fit and break free from the unhealthy habits that are holding them back. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, somebody that you think might find it interesting and valuable. I will be forever grateful. And come and follow me and say hi on Instagram. My handle there is Jessica Cooke. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.